So a while back, Brianna Ghey, a trans teenager, was murdered by two lunatic edgelords in a park. They were arrested. They've been found guilty, and they've been thrown in the slammer. We covered all of that. Since then, some developments. Since this has been a pretty high-profile case, unfortunately, and I'm not trying to dig into her here, but Brianna Ghey's mother has been talking about social media addiction, and in the context of the current political climate, especially with there being an ongoing effort to pass internet regulation here in the United States, I thought it was worth talking about. So here, from The Independent.
The other one is to, I've set up a petition on change.org to...
Again, I'm not digging at her here. Literally the mother of a murdered teenage girl. Not an ounce of bad intent here. We're not talking about some like conservative pundit lying. Okay, this is no like this is misguidedness is a normal human trait. I don't expect her to be some kind of like political wizard. It's just, yeah, it's unfortunate.
Get mobile phone companies to take more responsibility for children's welfare. So I personally would like to see mobile phones that are suitable for under 16s that don't contain, that can't download social media apps, and that are also connected to the adult's phone, so that if any words, any concerning words are typed into that phone, then they will be flagged up on the adult's phone.
Now, the weird thing here, if you think about it, is doesn't this sound like the kind of thing you would expect to hear from the mother of a girl who had killed herself? Right? She was murdered by two other people. Like this isn't, you know, like her death was a purely external, force, right? So you would think from like the language here that it was, social media caused the death of my daughter, which may be in an abstract way, sure, from the two killers' perspectives. But it is interesting.
We've got over 90,000 signatures on that petition now. And I suppose that with regards to creating that legacy for Brianna, with both of these campaigns, I'm just hoping to improve the mental health of young people, because Brianna struggled with her mental health, and I really know from a parent's perspective how hard that can be. And also to try and create a more empathetic and more understanding society.
All this stuff already exists? Well, yeah, it does. So here. Esther Ghey, the mother of a trans teen murdered last year in the UK, told The Independent that she believes social media addiction is responsible in part for her daughter's death. Personally, I think this is an example of a very, very common human trait, which is to find meaning in suffering. The idea that the life of someone can end abruptly just because two lunatics just decide to target and kill them is difficult to grapple with. So, I mean, social media, let's be fair, social media is indirectly responsible for basically everything on Earth at this point. So there's always going to be a connection, but many online say her comments are incorrectly shifting the blame. In February 2023, trans TikToker Brianna Ghey was murdered in Warrington, England. Earlier this month, teens Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe were sentenced to 22 and 20 years in jail, respectively. They stabbed her almost 30 times, such and such. A year after her daughter's murder, Esther Ghey spoke with multiple UK news outlets about how she wants cell phone companies to, quote, take more responsibility for children's welfare. She told The Independent that Brianna was addicted to social media, which she said in an interview with the BBC made her vulnerable. Again, I don't necessarily think this is untrue, but the vulnerability that led to her death was the human vulnerability to stab wounds, to sharp force trauma. That's, that's a different thing. Brianna struggled with her mental health. Ghey said in an interview with The Independent, Brianna was addicted to her phone. a popular TikToker struggling acutely with her mental health. Brianna's murder is not considered a hate crime. No, I don't like that. No, 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 no. Even the judge in the case said that there was like an element of targeted hate. They just didn't prosecute it as a hate crime because it would have been more difficult to secure the conviction because that's more subjective than no, 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 no. This is dishonest framing. It is absolutely considered a hate crime. It just wasn't prosecuted as one because they got them on murder one or whatever the British equivalent for murder one is anyway. This is horrible journalism. It's the Daily Dot. In the wake of Ghey's comments, many trans folks have taken to Twitter to express their frustration with the media hyping up her blame of social media, in part for Brianna's death. Apparently, Brianna Ghey was into, like, I don't know, some circles online involving self-harm or like anorexia or eating disorders or whatever, which, as I understand it, is pretty common for teen girls. So I don't necessarily know if that's even like a trans thing. I mean, you know, there's always like a correlation overlap there. What, dude, what is this fucking article? Social media played a role in Brianna's murder. It's where the radicalization of Brits into transphobia is taking place, Franks tweeted. Despite Franks' claims, there's no definitive proof Ghey's murderers were motivated by anti-trans hate. They literally talked about her being trans in the text they sent each other. It was commented on in the case. It just wasn't prosecuted as such because it would have been more difficult than just prosecuting for murder. There's no reason to prosecute them for murder and hate crime when you'd have a harder time proving the hate crime part when you could just get them in there forever on murder. The person who wrote this article hates trans people. Thank you, British journalism, as always. Wait, Daily Dot isn't British. Who wrote this? Tricia Crimmins. New York-based comedian. What are you doing? This person is spiritually British, okay? Spiritually British. Didn't they say, I want to see if she screams like a boy? I think so. I think I remember that, which is a stupid thing to say because everyone screams like a girl. That's how it works. That recent article looks cringe. Everything is cringe. Anyway, sort of like misguided efforts to, I don't know, redirect the cosmic randomness of your daughter being horribly murdered towards something else aside. Yeah, I don't know. I've said this before, but like, this is a really tough one. It's a really tough subject. I really don't think the human mind at any level of development is psychologically capable of handling social media, you know? I think that, you know, people cope with it in different ways. Like everyone had to like varying extents, everyone deals with it in their own way. Biologically, we're not really made to deal with stuff like that. And presumably it's at its worst for, you know, for young people. When I was growing up, when I was in high school, that was like the very beginning of mass accessible social media, right? Like I was growing up around the time MySpace was popular. And that was around the first time that there was a, like before that you like GeoCities or whatever. But in terms of like the average person, especially young people getting involved and being invested in social media, it was kicking off around that time. And, you know, people were pretty weird about it back then too. Like really weird about it. Like really, yeah, guys, people were pretty weird about it back then, you know? It's not just a new thing. People were freaks about beefs that happened online in MySpace that they would take, you know, to real life or, you know, whatever else. I don't know. I don't know if it would necessarily improve things to just take away access to social media from young people because a lot of them would just get access to it anyway. How do you even prevent them from, if there is no way your average parent is capable of shielding the young people in their house from using their computer to access social media. It's just not possible. There's no like blanket rule here. You know, can't put the cork back in the bottle. Yeah, I don't know how you'd really do that. I don't really know how. Time limits be more feasible. Well, no, even then, how do you get around that? Like any kid could just register as an adult, and then it's like, oh, well, what if they use their SSN or their driver's license? I'm really sorry to tell you guys, the kids will find their parents' SSN or their parents' driver's license. The average parent, I'm betting you, probably does not hide this information very well. You know, there's a way around it. Life finds a way. If kids want to go on TikTok and make videos about them drinking washing detergent for views, they will do it. Okay, it's just a biological. It's like how electricity finds the path of least resistance. You know, it's just. Also, fuck being forced to use an SSN or ID to be online. That's the current bill. That's what they're trying to right now. That is what they're discussing in our Congress right now, possibly at this moment. I don't know. The idea of you know, as always, like government control over the public commons being framed as like a protecting the kids thing. It's not going to help protect the kids. Actual organizations that help deal with you know, child abuse or whatever else, they don't like this law, this KOSA. That's what KOSA, KOSA law. Yeah. It's like this in South Korea. People still go. It's like this in South Korea. South Korea, a nation famous for not having a bunch of young internet addicts. That's true. Yeah. People were, in fact, people were getting Korean people to share their ID number to get into Black Desert's beta. Nice. All material, Fortnite. KOSA is just a way to ban LGBT groups. It's so bad, it leaves it up to the state of G's. Yeah, we talked about it. KOSA, as it's currently written, what basically says, hey, you know, social media can be purged of like, or like cases can be brought against material for being obscene, but obscenity is being left up to state attorney generals. So you can have the Texas AG who wants to prosecute people for sodomy, according to himself. He's said that. Decide whether or not like any kind of materials around LGBT people are obscene, you know? Remember 12 years ago when it was SOPA/SOSA? Yep, keep the over and over and over and over and over again, the same goddamn pattern. It's very, very dangerous, and it's not going to help trans teens, I can tell you that much, okay? The internet's a spooky and dangerous place, but I'd be willing to bet that for the average young trans person, it would be far worse if they didn't have the internet. You know, it's kind of a devil's bargain there. The internet has so much bad stuff in it, but at the same time, it's you know, for young people, you know, if you're an outcast or you're discriminated against or people don't like you very much, you can find friends online. You know, there's a lot of, the internet isn't entirely negative as much as it may seem like it by browsing Twitter. A thoroughly cooked website. Wonder if things would be better if we just got rid of the internet. That's a very privileged perspective on my end because I live in Seattle. If I was like a gay teen living in Montana, the internet would be like everything to me, right? Whereas nowadays, if the internet just like if every like satellite around Earth just like blinked out of existence or something, I could go like I could go to Capitol Hill and observe gay people with my own eyeballs. I could go there and perceive them. The internet is mostly undersea cables. Sure, a shark bites through the undersea. Yeah,